Are we on? Are we on? Welcome to Basketball Heads Live. I am your host, Glenn Poole Harding. Tonight, we have a very special guest. But before we get to our guest, I would like to say a few words about one of my good coaches. Tonight's show is in honor of Coach Arnie Hershkowitz, better known as Coach Hirsch. My good friend, Thomas Jefferson head coach Lud Bud Pollard has thrown a basketball showcase in honor of Coach Hirsch for the past 18 years. And tonight we have one of his good friends to bring it all together. So in honor of Coach Hirsch, let's start the show. All right, people. This basketball head is a New York City legendary coach from Benjamin Cardozo High School. For the last 48 years, he has become the New York State record holder for the most games won, not just for a high school coach, not even college, or even professional coach has more wins in New York State than this basketball head. He has recorded a mind-boggling 883 games throughout his career. His teams have made 39 playoff appearances, including the Elite Eight 21 times, Final Four 10 times, with 3 city championships, 2 as a head coach, 1 as an assistant. In addition, he has won 21 Queensboro championships. That's mean. This basketball head has won over 20 games a year for 24 years straight, which is another New York State record. But before this basketball head was a legendary coach, he was an all-city baseball player and all-Queens basketball player at his alma mater, Benjamin Cardozo. He played baseball at St. John's and helped them to the College World Series in 1978. And in 1979, he led the nation in stolen bases and was selected by the White Sox and drafted. That's so special. What do you know about a high school coach being drafted in baseball? Well, he spent 3 years in the minor leagues and in spring training camp where he would suffer a career-ending ankle injury, which would force him to retire. Once baseball was over with, he would return home to New York City to become an assistant coach under Al Madigan for his alma mater, Benjamin Cardozo. This basketball head also garnered the name The Teacher for playing with some of the most legendary basketball players in New York City history at the world-famous Rucker Park in Harlem. He has co-authored the book with John Valenti entitled Sweet Pea and Other Playground Legends, Tales of Drugs, Violence, and Basketball, which was included in the Basketball Hall of Fame Library in Springfield, Massachusetts. This basketball head was also featured in the TNT documentary On Hollow Ground. Who could forget the classic They Still Got Game? And one of my personal favorite, which in it, he reached his milestone. The number 723. We'll get into that a little bit later. You'll understand what that number really means to him. His homemade videos of his former player, Rayford Skip to my Lou Austin, has helped transform and one sneaker brand into a powerhouse on the streets of America. This basketball head was also selected to coach the Capital Classic All-American Games in Washington, D.C. in 2016. And in 2019, he was a coach in the Round Ball Classic All-American Game in Pittsburgh. This basketball head has accomplished so much during his lifetime, it would take me another 10 minutes to finish this intro. So, without further ado, help me welcome to the show, New York City legendary head coach at Benjamin Cardozo High School, Ron, the teacher, Naclerio.
Y'all ready? Y'all ready? Yes. You have just stepped out into the world of chaos, where everybody goes hard. Come on. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Or go home. Never back down. You gotta hold your own. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. East Coast. Go hard. West Coast. Go hard. Midwest. Go hard. Dirty. Hurry up, everybody. Get online, buy your tickets, cause the game about to start.
Hey, Coach, how you doing?
You know what? Seeing you got to be late 40s, early 50s. Seemed like yesterday you were 14 or 15. I got to know you through Arnie Hershkowitz.
Yes.
A character, but a legendary character who did so much for inner city kids.
Yeah.
And so many people that played ball became friends with each other.
Yeah.
And it's a mountain of stories. You, Captain Nappy, Skip to My Lou, Jamal Faulkner, Conrad McNasty. I mean, we can go on and on and on for days.
Yeah.
And all because of a guy named Arnie Hirsch. He got this white guy, Ron Naclerio. We went everywhere in the hood, whether it be Coney Island, South Jamaica, Hempstead, Fort Greene, the Rucker, Dykeman, and you're doing well. I see your show has become one of the top podcasts, and I'm blessed to be on it tonight.
No, that's awesome, man. It's a pleasure to have you on. Actually, I was just talking to Captain Nappy just a few minutes ago. He was like, why didn't you tell me? I would have had so many questions for Coach, man. Like, I was like, yo, just come on the show and enjoy the fun. So he's going to be tapping in a few minutes.
You know, it's funny how so many guys have nicknames. Captain Napke. We know him as Shane Drisden.
That's right.
Skip to My Lou, Ray Ferralston, Future, Molloy Nesmith. I mean, we go on and on and on because even though we played the street ball world, which got us a lot of fame, I had a nickname, the teacher. But we grew up knowing each other as Glenn Harding, Lincoln, Ron Naclerio, Cardozo, Molloy Nesmith, Columbus. We go on and on, Ray Ferralston, Cardozo. And we look back on the legacy of what each of us done, these stories. If we were in a bar, we were at a picnic, we were at a barbecue, and we started forming with the stories, basketball aficionados that would want to hear, they would be dumbfounded by the stuff we would be telling them. Because it's all true. We're not making it up.
Right. And that was one of my reasons for starting the show. You know, one day I was watching Drink Champs, which is one of my favorite podcasts. I saw Lamar Odom on there, and I just felt like they didn't talk about any of his basketball stuff. You know, they was talking about all the stuff that was in the news, and I just felt like New York City needed a safe space, especially the players, coach, and everybody that's involved with the culture, needed a safe place to come so they could tell their stories, right?
Well, but you know, when it comes to Lamar Odom, I wish he would have went to Cardozo instead of Christ the Queen, instead of Christ. Now I got to give them their props for a national program. But Lamar was very tight with Daryl Showtime Hill, a Cardozo kid. They were
another guest on the show. I had him on the show. Yep.
Daryl would always bring Lamar around. Lamar would be telling the people at the front door he's transferring to Cardozo. Lamar, when he was in the NBA, flew me out several times to LA, put me up in the Marriott Marina Del Rey. I used to work him out. And I told Lamar, I'm coming out there for a week. We're going to work hard nonstop. And, you know, I'm not here for a vacation. If I'm going to be on a vacation, I'm not going to hang out with you in LA.
Right.
But I remember the first night we were there. He worked out at night. We're in this gym. And I'm really putting him through. And I said, Lamar, you know I'm going to be me. I'm going to get on you. I'm going to yell at you. I'm going to push you. Because if not, you shouldn't have brought me out here. You shouldn't be reaching into your pocket paying me to work you out. So, there were two people working out with another person on the other side of the court. And after about an hour, when they kind of stopped, next thing you know, they came over because it was late at night in the gym. There was only Lamar, myself, two other guys, and a guy working them out. And they started working out with me, and they loved your drills. And the next couple of days, instead of just working out Lamar, I worked out Lamar and the two other guys, Emeka Okafor and Paul Pierce.
Wow.
And so, you know, my reputation started spreading, you know, working out guys. I used to work out guys at LA Sports Club, Sebastian Telfair, Stephon Marbury, Royal Ivy, Ben Gordon, Mike Dunleavy, Troy Murphy, on and on and on and on. So the game of basketball has been great for me. It has made me, I didn't realize it, nationally known because in social media. It has made me nationally asked for to do podcasts. And locally, it has made it that parents hope to send their kids to play for me because I've had a lot of success. I've had 91 Division I kids come to Cardozo and end up going D1 since 1981 as the head coach.
Wow. Well, we're gonna run down your whole history, Coach. I just want to start from the beginning, and which I usually ask everyone who comes on the show, who introduced you to the game?
My dad, may he rest in peace, was a famous heart and lung surgeon, and he did what all dads do, try to get their sons into sports. He didn't put us at any particular sport. I had an older brother, Emil Jr., who unfortunately passed away July 20th,
Rest in peace.
2002. In fact, I found him dead in the Bay Club. It's an apartment house, Bay Terrace. That was the hardest thing I ever had to do was when I found him dead, get back in the elevator, press the ground floor, run out through the main desk because I knew something was wrong. Told him I found my brother dead, rushed in the car. For the first 30 seconds, 40 seconds, I didn't care about anything. I was going 100 miles an hour, didn't stop at lights. If people were crossing the street, I didn't care if I hit them. Well, God blessed me that I didn't do anything. And all of a sudden, I took a deep breath and I realized I can't make a bad situation worse. I quickly went back home, went into my mom's room, grabbed her and told her, Mom, I found Emil Jr. dead. And she couldn't believe it. And that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I still remember, I think of it, it shakes me, but, you know, in life, you have trials and you have tribulations. And I've had a lot of trials. I've had some tribulations. And basketball, my dad got me involved. He also got me involved in baseball. He taught me football, but he was being a doctor. He knew that football, you can get hurt.
Yeah.
One of the ways I really got involved with basketball was, as you know, and I think a lot of the people out there know, my father was the surgeon how to devise how to put the pacemakers in. And he saved a lot of famous people. 1958, he saved arguably the greatest American's life on September 20th, 1958, when the gentleman was in a store signing books, autographing books. And some crazy lady walked over to him and said, "Are you Dr. King?" So he said, yes. The lady stabbed him in the chest. The knife is in his chest, touching his aorta. If he would have sneezed or coughed, he drowns in his own blood, which he said in his famous speech. My father quickly leaves the Waldorf Astoria. He was going to a wedding. He was in a tux with my mom. Now, anybody who remembers driving with my dad He was Mario Andretti. He didn't stop, especially if there was somebody's life he could save. He quickly changes out of his tux, gets into his scrubs, walks in there. Dr. Cordice and Dr. Maynard, two black doctors, are hemming and hawing because it was such a dangerous situation. It would be like a pin touching a balloon. And if the pin touches a balloon, it penetrates his aorta. He drowns in his own blood. How do you tell somebody not to cough or sneeze? You can't. Time was of the essence. So just like on WHSAK, on HarlemSaveTheKing.com, it's a 5-minute trailer on what happened, and they have live video of my father saving Dr. King. My father quickly grabbed the situation and, like a bull grabbing a horn, and removed 2 ribs from the side, got the knife out, saved his life. The next morning, he got up to change his dressing to make sure no infection. Well, when he did that, paparazzi came in, took a picture. That's the picture that went viral. You see my doctor, my dad, Dr. Naclerio, leaning over to change Dr. King's dressing. That's the picture. From that picture, I learned something. My father wore a bow tie. And he told me the reason why he wore a bow tie, because if you're a doctor and you're leaning over to check on your patients, a regular tie would get in the way. It was going to take Dr. King 3 months to become 100% healthy. 3.5 months later, my father gets a beautiful letter from Dr. King thanking him. 2 weeks later, Coretta Scott King calls my dad. My father goes, "Is everything all right? Is everything all right?" Coretta Scott King goes, "No, everything's great. But you said when we left New York, if there's anything we ever needed, to call. Well, that's why we're calling. What do you need?" Coretta said, "I don't want my husband coming back to New York for obvious reasons. We don't trust anybody in New York, black or white, but we trust you. I trust you, and Dr. King trusts you. So what is it that you need? We know that you're a police surgeon. When he comes back, do you mind accompanying him?" So my father accompanied him once. He accompanied him twice. And the 3rd or 4th time, Dr. King and my dad brought along their wives, my mom, Gloria, and Dr. King, Coretta Scott King. They went to, I forgot the name of this restaurant, on 37th and 5th. It's not there anymore. I think it's Spark Steakhouse. And then they went to an Italian place another time. My father traveled all around the country teaching the young doctors the medical techniques of putting the pacemaker in. So he would go to Atlanta. He would call Dr. King. Dr. King introduced him to his dad, Daddy King. They became very good friends. In fact, I have an autographed book from Daddy King dated October 21st, 1980, 22 years after my dad saved his life, 12 years after Dr. King was assassinated, saying, "Dear Dr. Naclerio, may God bless you. Love, Daddy King." I treasure that. Here is a copy of a letter that Dr. King sent to my dad. I'd like to share it with you. It says, on stationery letterhead, Martin Luther King Jr., Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, 434 Dexter Avenue, Montgomery, Alabama. The letter is dated January 6, 1959. Dear Dr. Naclerio, ever since leaving New York, I have been intending to write you at least a note to express my great appreciation to you for all that you did to preserve my life. Your skilled surgery, coupled with your genuine concern for me as a patient, combined to bring me from a very low ebb in my life to blooming health again. Please know that I will remember your gestures of goodwill so long as the cords of memory shall lengthen. I hope you have received our gift by now. It is simply a little way to express our gratitude to you for all that you did to ease the load of a difficult period in our lives. With best wishes to you and yours for health and happiness in 1959, I am sincerely yours, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Wow. That's definitely historical. and legendary.
Well, I'm happy because the story is getting out. Brian Beagle, Bill Raftery Jr., Kevin Garnett, and Grant Hill have production companies, and I've signed one with them to do a documentary about that whole situation of Dr. King, Dr. Naclerio, the Naclerio family, the King family, and how I kind of followed in my father's footsteps, helping kids, maybe not saving them, surgically, but saving them, grabbing them from the streets. How I got into basketball? My father also saved Ned Irish's secretary. Ned Irish was the president of the New York Knicks in Madison Square Garden. And Mary Molloy, the secretary, was given by three doctors no more than a couple of weeks to live. Word got to Ned Irish, try Dr. Naclerio, a thoracic surgeon, a Mount Rushmore thoracic surgeon. Well, he said, you know what? 0 for 3, 0 for 4. Well, it ended up he was 1 for 4. My father saved Mary Molloy's life. She managed to live another 13 years after the procedure my father did. Ned Irish goes to my dad. I really want to thank you. So I'm taking you out to dinner. So my dad goes to dinner with him. My dad's office was 35 East 35th Street, about 3 blocks and 4 avenues from Madison Square Garden. So Ned Irish goes, I got to do something more. My dad goes, no, that's my job. Don't worry about it. Taking me to dinner was enough. He goes, no. Do you have any sons? So my dad goes, yes. How old are they? Well, one's 12, one's 14. Does any of them like sports? My oldest son likes sports, but my youngest son, me, loves sports. Does he like basketball? He certainly does. He goes, well, Doc, with your permission, I just hired your son. So my father goes, hired? He's not looking for a job. He goes, he's going to want this job. It was New York Knicks ball boy.
Wow.
And if they can see it, tell me if you can see this.
Move it up just a little bit more. Move it up. Move it up. No. Not closer to the camera. Move it back and move it up. Bring it up. Bring it up. There you go. There you go. Yeah, I can see it. Definitely. I can see. Yeah. I can't see the faces, but I can definitely see the picture.
All right. Well, I'll quickly tell you. There's a young kid wiping the foul lane. That's me. Then there's Hawthorne Wingo, Mike Bantam, Walt Frazier, and Phil Jackson pointing to the spot.
Wow.
That's a legendary picture. When people at the New York Knicks who know me and know my long career, I show them the Knick ball boy stuff. They're like, wow, they didn't even know that. Now, I might not be the most well-known Knick ball boy. But now that you heard it, you would probably say, you know what? Ron Naclerio probably has to be the most well-known Knick ball boy. There was somebody else about 10 years older than me, maybe more, I don't know his exact age, maybe 15, that he was once a ball boy that might be a little more notable than me. And that's Marv Albert, the legendary Knick announcer.
Wow. And look, you have the Knick colors just in reverse, right? You got the orange and blue, right?
Well, Cardozo's colors are royal blue and orange.
Right.
And just so happens to be the Knick colors,
Yeah. How was life for young Ron Naclerio growing up in New York in the 60s?
Well, 60s, I was born in 57, so I was a young, 9, 10 in my early teenage years. What I did was what every kid who loves sports. Go to school, second school was over, run home, knock off my homework as quickly as could be so that I could spend the rest of the day playing baseball, basketball, or football. And then I started watching the Knicks, watching the Mets, watching the Yankees and the Jets and the Giants. And, the sports addiction became a healthy addiction.
Yeah. To those people that's in the room, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Get those thumbs up. You got your guy Mike Blissett's in the building. Coach Mike Placez in the building. My guy, Tucson from All Ball and with Uncle Ice, the podcast. Make sure you go to his channel, subscribe to his channel, and see him on YouTube. Got Paul Scurry from the Scurry family in here, right? Salute to my guy, Paul. Who else we got in here? Shout out some people that's here. Todd Rivero, my young guy from up in Harlem. Definitely got a lot of questions lined up for you, Coach. Who's that? Ronnie Winston. Yes, and Robert Young. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. So let's go to go through your younger years, and then we go right into your high school years. You said you played football, basketball, baseball. That's something that I think all of us played coming up early on in New York City. You kind of played a little bit of everything to see where your niche was, right? But you found out you was an incredible baseball player. And you played basketball as well. But let's talk about the baseball part a little bit before we jump right back into the basketball.
Well, the people growing up today see basketball year round. They see the summer tournaments, the fall tournaments, the high school season, the spring season. When I was growing up, you played baseball in the spring, and in the fall, you played football. There was no basketball leagues in the summer. There might have been one, but not like it is today. And then in the winter, you play basketball because you couldn't go outside to play baseball. So you basically grew up playing football, starting off the school year, to basketball, to baseball, to the summer. And, I really think that a lot more inner city kids in New York, if they played baseball, could really go places. And the sad thing is, they all have this basketball dream. I mean, if you're 5'9", you have no left hand, you're an average athlete, the dream is going to become a nightmare because you have no chance. But there were a lot of baseball players. There was a 5'6" white guy from Richmond Hill High School that had average everything, but ended up winning the MVP one year in the American League, Phil Rizzuto. You had my roommate at St. John's, a 5'9" guy that really couldn't dribble with his right hand, but he threw a fastball 95, learned how to throw a screwball, and became a potential Hall of Fame pitcher from Lafayette High School, Johnny Franco. So that's the problem. Unless you are born with star size or athleticism in basketball, you have no chance. Baseball, there's a chance. I know people say it's boring. It might be expensive because you got to buy a glove, and then you buy a bat, and the first time you take a swing, the bat's broken. Well, what can you do? That's just a sign of the times. But I really do believe that a lot of the kids, would be very good in baseball, potentially D1, drafted, maybe major leagues. And I think if they played baseball in the spring and summer to summer, just to get away from the daily grind of basketball, have some fun being a kid. That's the problem. So many kids today, they're not kids. They have parents or they have street agents pushing them to be the next. Let them be a kid. And if they're going to make it, they're going to make it. I've had 4 play in the NBA. None of them with McDonald's All-Americans. None of them were the next coming. But they all played in the NBA and did very well for themselves.
That's amazing. Look, what position did you play in baseball?
Well, I was a lefty, so I played center field. When I was young and small, where it didn't matter if you were lefty or righty, I played shortstop because I was good. But as you move up, they could not put a lefty at shortstop. It's not Little League, and it's not Senior League. It's the league before, because Little League is 60 feet bases. Senior League is 90-foot bases. And there's the league between, as you're getting older, is 75-foot bases. My team's catcher broke his hand, and we had no catcher. My dad bought me a lefty catcher's mitt, which I still had. So I actually spent 1 year, in Little League or whatever Pony League, I think that's what it's called, as a lefty catcher. And I gained a lot of respect for catchers from that 1 year behind the dish.
Let me tell you, the first sport I played was baseball. I respected the catchers so much because they tried to put me back there and I couldn't take it. My nerves is too bad. The ball was coming too fast and the bat is swinging. You have to have a lot of patience and being able to squat for such a long period of time.
Yeah.
Have so much respect for catchers.
Yeah. And when you get older, it's amazing. You see these major leaguers, they just squat like they're sitting on a little, little chair for a whole half inning. And then you get these guys, they gun the ball home to first, home to second on their knees. I mean, I remember in a spring training game, I got in the majors. I got on first base on a bunt single against Grant Jackson, who pitched for the Pirates. And wow, did he have pickoff move after pickoff move for a guy that did the 60 in 6.38 and led the nation in stolen bases Division I my senior year in the New York Penn League, my first year in the minors. It was like, oh crap. Because you know what? Now you got to be really, really wary because they're very crafty. I remember we're playing St. Louis Cardinals, hit and run. I get the third, pretty easy. And guy hits a fly ball, one man out. So I'm going to tag up. The ball goes to almost the warning track in right field.
Right.
And, I was young. I was a hustler. I'm not going to dog it like half of these guys today. And I got to make my mark. So I bust my ass the second I could run off the base when Sixto Lizcano catches it. And I busted my behind. I didn't even look up. When I'm crossing the plate, I looked to my left. And the throw was right there. That if I dogged it a half a step, I might have been out. And I couldn't believe a guy could do that. And Sam Hairston, who took a lot of like to me and thought I would have had a long career in Chicago if I didn't get hurt. All of the Hairstons that played Major League Baseball, he's either the father, the grandfather, the great-great-father, grandfather, the great-uncle. So Sam Hairston was the first black player to play for the White Sox.
Mm.
When I played the first year in the minors, Larry Doby, Sr., was at all of our games because he was director with the White Sox. His son, Larry Doby Jr., played with us. He was the first black person to play in the American League. And Sam pulled me aside and told me, he goes, Ron, I know you're nervous. If you're not nervous, you're not normal. Everybody here is here for a reason. Some of them, they have to have 1 out of 5. Hit for power, hit for average, hit for power, run, field, or throw. You can hit for average, you can run, you can field, and you can throw. It'll show. Just have fun. Don't put pressure on yourself. I remember 1980. I'm in Sarasota, Florida. Sarasota is the home of the White Sox spring training facility. They use it year round. And I don't know why I decided to come. You had to be there at 3 for a 7 o'clock game, batting practice. People don't realize it. When the Mets play a game and the Yankees play a game, the game is at 7 o'clock. You go to the game at 6:30. You think the players get there at 6. You're not. The players are there at 12:01. They're putting in 5-6 hours of stretching, working, loosening up, whatever it is to get ready for that game. So for this time, I got there about 1:30. I think the reason why I got there early was my bat order. My bat order was coming because, bats are very important because in the minor leagues, you don't have your own bats. You're using, the team supplied bats. It might be too old. The wood might be soft. The bat might be too heavy. It might be the wrong ounce. It might be cracked. And I learned how to, not cork a bat. I know how to roll it so the wood would be tight. So I happened to get there, and lo and behold, my dozen bat order was there. And Sam Hairston knew that. So I'm in there. I'm the first guy there, but the bat boy, the bat boy was there. The clubhouse attendant comes running over to me and goes, Ron, right now, Sam Hairston wants you in the dugout. I'm like, what? He wants you right now in the dugout. Drop whatever you're doing. So I drop. Oh, and the kid goes, oh, he wants you to bring one of his bats. One of your bats you just got. So I'm saying, how did Sam know I got the bats? But he probably, who knows? And then why does he want me to bring a bat? Because it's too early for early bunting or early hitting practice. He goes, just do it. So 30 seconds later, because, I listened to everybody. I didn't want to get a bad rep. Plus, I was that type of kid. Somebody tells me to do something. So I went up there into the dugout. When I got into the dugout, I was like Jackie Gleason on The Honeymooners. Nom, 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 nom. Nom, nom. Nom, 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 nom. So Sam starts talking to me. I didn't know. See, Sam got to know my dad from the previous 2 years in the minors. Sam and my dad hit it off. And Sam really respected my dad because Sam was from Alabama. And he respected my dad because of, one, my dad outgoing, and that he knew that he was the surgeon that saved Dr. Martin Luther King. So I'm in the dugout, and he tells the person that was in the dugout with him all about me. And that person wanted to hear the story about my dad. And I'm saying it like almost hyperventilating, because I was like, boom. And I kind of loosened up a little. And then the gentleman started talking. And I said, yes, sir, no, sir. And he said to me, he goes, Ron, you're being very polite. I think you're being overly polite. I said, no, I was told by that. But I knew he kind of knew I came from good stock when he was hitting me about my mom and my dad. So then Sam goes, you know why I asked you to bring a bat here? No, I don't, Sam. He goes, well, he pointed to the person and the guy goes, you want me to autograph it?
Wow.
And I said, yeah. It was Hank Aaron.
Wow.
Hank Aaron. I was in awe of Hank Aaron. 755 lifetime home runs. He's talking to me. I got to know him. When he passed away a couple of years ago, it kind of hurt because I ran into him. I mean, Hank Aaron, arguably top 10 baseball players of all time. Maybe top 5, top 10. Here I am, a minor leaguer, dreaming of making the majors, and I'm meeting one of the all-time great Hall of Famers. And when he passed away, I remembered that bat.
Mm.
And since my mom passed away, things are a little disheveled in my house. I spent about a half hour saying, there's no way I threw it out. And I found the bat. Hank Aaron signed. And I have it in my heart.
Wow. Rest in peace, Hank Aaron, man. That's such a great story. Let's switch gears a little bit over to basketball, right? What position did you play in basketball?
I tried out. I was the guard when I was in the Jewish Center League. I thought I was good. I was in a white neighborhood where most kids didn't play, and I scored 30 points a game. Like, basically, kids that couldn't play or chew gum. And Willis Reed, as we go back, my father, Willis Reed, had a heart problem, and because of him being a Knick and Ned Irish getting me the job as Knick ball boy, when there was the problem with Willis Reed, who did they call? Dr. Emil Naclerio. So my dad became very good friends with Willis Reed. And Willis Reed had a basketball camp at New York Military Academy called Willis Reed All-Star Basketball Camp.
Mm-hmm.
So guess who was going to his camp 3 weeks every summer? Ron Naclerio. Hanging out with, the Knicks, Bill Bradley, Bill Hoskett, Willis Reed. And that's how I got to know Willis. Willis was great person. I was really blessed being a ball boy for the Knicks because I learned a lot, not realizing I was even trying to learn. Dick Barnett used to come in real early. And on Saturdays, he would go, Ron, I want you here at 3 for a 7:30 game. I would rebound for him for 2 hours before a game. Fall back, baby. And I was amazed at how he would take those jump shots, almost like kicking himself in the behind.
Yes.
I tried doing it 1 or 2 times. And of course, my dad would always pick me up. The Garden would let him in. And now the Earl Monroes, the Dick Barnetts, the Walt Frazier's know me. They also know my dad and the respect. And I haven't seen Dick Barnett in years. And he became Dr. Dick Barnett. Went back to become a doctor. I think he's about 81 years old now. I went to David Stern's funeral at in the city, Radio City Music Hall. I went to his funeral, and I'm walking, and an older gentleman goes, Ron. So I turn. He goes, it's Dick. It was Dick Barnett. We hugged. He remembered the picture. So it's amazing. Rebounding from him, 71, 72, 73, 69, 70. Here it was, 45 years later. He remembered me. It was amazing because, he didn't see me as an adult. He said he realized I was Ron Naclerio, the Cardozo coach, just from, following me in the paper. And he's followed, my coaching career. But we were talking. I mean, he was a great player, Dick Barnett. The stories that I have from being Nick Ballboy. I actually, from being Nick Ballboy, Randy Caden, Bubba Grimes from Queensbridge, who passed away.
Rest in peace, Bubba Grimes. Yeah.
You remember Walter Bubba Grimes?
I know the name. I didn't know him personally.
So, and then Greg Sabat, they asked us to work the college games because that was when college games were nonstop.
Yeah.
So they would be like college games on a Friday, doubleheader during, let's say, Christmas week. And then the Knicks would play in the afternoon, and they would have the semifinals and the finals of the ECAC Holiday Festival. So we wouldn't get out of the Garden until 1 and have to wake up 7 to get back there by 9. So one night, Randy says, yo, why are we going home? Let's sleep. What are you talking about? We slept in the Knick locker room 3 times. Over. And I remember starting to talk to Red Holzman, asking him stuff. And his assistant coach then was Danny Whalen, the trainer. There was no assistant coach. Explain
to everybody who Nate Holzman is, just in case our audience
Red
Holzman
was the legendary coach of the Knicks. Coached the Knicks to the championship in 69, 70, 72, 73. I was part-time ball boy, 69, 70. I was full-time ball boy, 72, 73. And I teased the Knicks. Maybe you should hire me back as a ball boy or in some other position because ever since I left, you haven't won squiddly.
Did this help you develop into a ball player once you went back to high school?
I learned. I started. You see certain routines players do, or like Earl Monroe, how he would flip the ball to himself and do a quick half, little things, and then it was a lot more fun because you would do one game under the basket and one game on the bench. But the guys under the basket had it easy. You called out, and it was weird. They didn't even give us a mop then. We had a towel to run out and get the perspiration off. But I used to love working the Knick bench because I would hear them talk. I would hear Holzman. Like that was when the player would rip off his warm-up. You got to go grab it, and then a bench. It was amazing how I learned stuff not knowing down the road what I learned would help me as a coach. I remember '74. Playing baseball for Cardozo, getting ready for baseball in March. I sprained my ankle severely, where for 2 weeks I was in a walking cast.
Mm.
And I'm working the Phoenix Sun bench. And during the timeouts, it wasn't the water bottles. You had to come up there with a tray and you had the paper cups filled with water. So here I am walking into the huddle and I kind of lose my balance. I slip and I fall with the tray with the 12 cups of water. It splashes Tom Van Arsdale and Dick Van Arsdale and the coach, Cotton Fitzsimmons. And that was when I wanted to crawl under a rock. But thank God they were so nice about it. They were winning the game at the time, and they ended up beating the Knicks that game. So I apologized 100 times. I walked into the locker room after the game. And like Cotton Fitzsimmons actually started saying, yo, stop trying to apologize. Stop trying to apologize. I said, I don't want to lose my, he goes, you're not losing your job. Don't worry about it. You know, I didn't want him complaining to the Knicks organization, the ball boy did this and that. But, you know, I remember, you know, as you get a little more comfortable after games or way early to the games, you know, I'm on the court with Bubba Grimes playing one-on-one, shooting at the Garden. It was great. I mean, it was great, man. I was like, you know, here I am, 12, 13, 14 years old, acting like, you know, I'm Clyde back in Jerry Westtown, hitting the fall away, you know, and it was great. You know, it was great. I mean, I remember one Christmas, the Knicks actually had a game on Christmas night. My parents had tickets. They were playing the Atlanta Hawks. They were playing against Pistol Pete Maravich, my idol. After the game, we were all summoned to Willis Reed, and he handed each ball boy a Christmas card. And at that time, $20 a piece. $20 then was
a lot of money.
And, you know, just the stuff that I went through. I remember when we wanted to get in shape, we would run around the Garden, the load section, which was almost a quarter of a mile, because you would see the NBA players when they wanted to get in shape. They would actually run around Madison Square Garden, the circular stuff to stay in shape. And it was great. Remember, then there was no shooting machines. It was the ball boys, you know? Then it wasn't the machine with 5 balls. The ball hit the rim and rolled into, you know, first row section, second row section. The ball boy had to sprint and go get it. But I met a lot of great people. A lot of them passed away. John Goldner, Red Holzman, Danny Whalen, and legendary Nick Trainer, Mike Saunders. The Garden has changed, though.
Yes.
The Garden has changed.
You can't run around anymore either, right?
It's all up and down. It's a lot more corporate. It's really not as fan-friendly as I knew it. You know, Barclays Arena has become a lot more fan-friendly to me. I mean, it's weird because I go to the Garden now. Everybody knows me. The ushers know me. This guy knows me. But I want to tell you a story.
All right.
That it's the first time I'm telling. I had a friend named Tommy Hackett, who was a New York City top flight detective for 20 years. Puts in his 20 years, retires. Now he went from director of CBS sports security to director of CBS security, all of it. So now the Final Four, I go, Tommy and I go, he gets tickets. We go with a crew of about 5 or 6. We end up sitting at incredible seats. 1 year 4th row, 1 year 8th row, 1 year 20th row at the Final Four. There was a time when I had dreams. I had a vision. Why can't I? Why can't I? Why can't I move up? Why can't I get a job in the NBA? And I would write every month or two a letter to James Dolan at the Garden. Sometimes it would be a humorous letter. Sometimes it would be a serious. And I kept on writing, never knowing if he ever got the letter. I wanted that. I thought I could coach at that level. And I did it for about, in fact, I even have the letters. And I did it for about 8 years. So 8 times what? Maybe 100, 150 letters. I'm on the subway one day, a couple of years after I stopped writing. And there's a black guy about 40 years old. Hey, coach, how you doing? I had no idea who he was. So he's coaching, blah, blah, blah. So he goes to me, he goes, Coach, why'd you stop writing? I haven't seen you write. I go, what are you talking about? He goes, oh, I'm in charge of the mailroom at Madison Square Garden.
Wow.
So I go, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, I used to see, Ron Naclerio, your address, blah, 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 blah. You would write all the time, James Dolan, blah, blah, blah. And why'd you stop writing? I didn't have the heart to tell him that I got tired. And that hurt me because the fact that I know that he got the letters and he got it to James Dolan and other people, that hurt me because I was basically wasting my time regardless if I was qualified or not. Now, if we go back to Tommy Hackett, Mark Jackson thought I deserved a chance. And I would get the media pass because I wrote for Hoop Scoop. You remember Hoop Scoop?
Yep, yep.
So I didn't abuse the NBA privilege of Hoop Scoop. But once or twice a year, I'd request the media pass, and I would do with something on the NBA for Clark Francis, who ran Hoop Scoop. This time, I didn't use it to write an article. I used it to try to grab Isaiah Thomas and talk to him and give him my resume personally. I'm in the Knicks locker room after the game. Tommy Hackett, remember what I just mentioned?
Mm-hmm.
Comes in the locker room, and we're very good friends. He goes, Ron, you're not going to believe this. What? He goes, come here. He goes, what? He goes, I was told I have to escort you out of the Garden. I go, what? I was told you have to leave now. I have to escort you out of the Garden. Just like some other people. So I walked out. He escorted me out of the Garden. We spoke. I found out there was an assistant GM of the Knicks who I know. He's not with the Knicks now. He was worried that I would get James Dolan here, sit down, and that I would cost him his job. And as crazy as it sounds. And to this day, that's one of the reasons why I got a little animosity toward the New York Knicks. The story I just told you is not made up. It's a fact. And when I put all the pieces together, I'll just say this. The person lives in Indiana.
Got you.
That's a story. That's a story. That's a pretty wild story, correct?
Yeah, yeah. Definitely.
So now here I am. My dream of coaching St. John's, I know is never going to happen. I really probably wouldn't want to coach St. John's because I wouldn't want to recruit these kids who I have to kiss their behind, who would have to deal with their handlers, who would have to deal with unrealistic parents. Because I would say this, just like I would say to a parent saying, I'm thinking of sending my kid to Cardozo. I'm going to give you everything I got. I'm going to try to make you the best person, the best student, the best player. And I'm going to try to make your life better. And if that's not good enough, then I really don't want you at Cardozo, or I'm not going to recruit you. because unfortunately today it's a me game, not a we game. I'm a me coach. I'm a we coach. I'm a we coach, not a me coach. And unfortunately today there's too many me players. Do you agree, Glenn?
Yeah, it's a lot of that going on. I had Brian Nash up here, who is, the son of Ray Nash. He's down at IMG. We had a great conversation, and we talked about a lot of the players now getting these college offers, right? A lot of high school players, 9th, 10th grader getting all these college offers, and it's basically coming from the connection from the AAU coach to the college coach that they probably know a person who's giving these kids these shadow offers that's not really doesn't account for anything. But these kids post up on the IG page, and they promote themselves as going to these schools and getting offers, but they're just what they are. They're just an interest. It's just like the college letters coach used to give back in the days when I was coming up. That we got a letter from UCLA. Doesn't mean UCLA was going to offer us a scholarship.
Yeah, basically it was a form letter. You're on the list. They mail it.
There you go. Yeah.
I've been coaching a long time. I didn't realize it. A couple of my players, Patrick Crosby, Curtis Bryant, who played for me in the early 80s, they hit me with this. They go, Coach, you played for Cardozo 72, 73, 73, 74, 74, 75. When you went to St. John's, your first year, you had an athletic administration internship at Cardozo where you got college credits for coaching. Every year you were at Cardozo as an assistant coaching. I got drafted by the White Sox, 79, 80 in the offseason. I coached. 81, 82, I became the head coach at Cardozo. Well, they said, Coach, do you realize you're in your second half century? I go, what are you talking about? They go, Coach, you started at Cardozo 1972 to 1973. You've never left. Player, assistant coach, head coach. It's now 2022, 2023. So 1972, 73, 2022, 2023, 23. So I didn't realize it. And, you live long enough, you help some people. Curtis Bryant and Pat Crosby, we both played baseball at Cardozo. We had a great dinner for a legendary baseball coach from Cardozo, 60s and 70s, Ed Tatarian, who's 86 years old now.
Wow.
Well, they are doing a dinner for me May 20th at Roma View in Howard Beach this year. And they, behind my back, found out that right now there's going to be over at least 200, 300 people coming. That's without them even getting it out. So I have no idea, but I'm so happy that I have players that think of me so many years later like the way they do. So it's really nice. But the game is ugly. The game has changed. The game is going to go on. Maybe the game will circle around. But Glenn, when you and I first met, there really wasn't that much money in high school basketball. Money. You got a free pair of sneakers. Well, now you got two kids in the Catholic High School League with the name, image, and likeness. I heard one's making 100,000, one's making 200,000. So it's mind-boggling. And I tease one of my former players, Royal Ivy, played in the NBA. Very well respected. He's now been coaching in the NBA, I don't know, 6-7 years. He's now on the first row, sitting with the Nets as the top assistant. And I tease him. I said, Royal, you make more money in meal money during the course of a year than I do the whole season. Because every NBA away game, each player and coach gets $129 or $139. If the Knicks play the Nets in Brooklyn. The Knicks players going to Brooklyn still get the meal money for the day. And when you are in the league now, all of your facilities have a full-time chef that are preparing breakfast, lunch, and dinner for you. So basically, you don't even need meal money. So it's
Yeah.
getting to the point where, like, wow. I got to know Mike Krzyzewski pretty well, especially when Howie Garfinkel, the legendary guy at
Yes, rest in peace,
five-star
golf. Rest in peace, golf. Yeah.
and Mike started saying, wow, Ron, I'm starting to realize what you've done as a coach. I'm reading up, the years, the amount of wins. Wow. So I said, Mike, you want to hear something funny? He goes, what? He goes, what you made last year in 1 month, what you made last year in 1 month is twice as much as I made in 41 years. So you're not in it for money, you're in it for love. And you know what? I love what I do. Am I slowing down a little? Well, I've been blessed to have great assistants. Billy Medley, who retired, he's not with me anymore. Rob Moses, who's going through a little something. Mike Lissette, who's been with me as a player, as a coach, who actually has become a top flight coach, X's and O's. I believe Mike can coach on any level, college or pro. And I have one of my former players, Antonio Mamanakis, who has an AAU program, Spartan Pride. He's with me now. He loves it. He's bringing a lot to the table. And I realize I'm getting older because not only did I coach Anthony Mamanakis with Ray for Alston and Dwayne Woodward and Charles Cranford, I also coached his son in 2019, 2020. Right now, I've coached 5 players who have their sons. So it's getting a little woo.
Man, when you talk about the money situation with the NIL, right? I just gonna give you a little glimpse of what certain players are making.
What? Oh, come on. Who's the second guy? Are you kidding?
Mikey Williams.
Oh, come on, man. Oh, come on.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Now, this comes on the heels of what was that Ed O'Bannon from UCLA, who was exploited in the video games back in the 90s, and then finally coming to fruition. But I think it for me being a player from this side, wishing I could make a couple of dollars during my college days, which we all were broke, but then understanding it now as I step back as an adult and seeing how this can be, I'm 50-50 with it, right? It could be a good thing for kids who really need it, but then now each player is going to ask, if I'm coming to your school, what can you give me?
Yeah. Well, I don't like the new rule, and Dan Gavitt and I became friends. Dan Gavitt is the son of Dave Gavitt, who started the Big East, who was the president of the Boston Celtics and was also the legendary coach of Providence College. Dan Gavitt is in head of NCAA men's basketball, and he doesn't like this new portal stuff because kids are picking up and leaving the second a coach subs me out. You sub me out, I'm leaving. And if you're a coach that finds some hidden gems, or if you're a coach that can take a kid and make him take a D2 player and make him a mid D1 player in a year, he puts his name in the portal and you basically wasted your time.
But why would they create the transfer portal, coach? This is my thing, right? I said the same thing, but I'm saying they created a monster. You created a monster. You open up this can of worms. Now kids, are becoming quitters, right? You're kind of teaching kids to become quitters. It's like, I'm not going to finish what I started.
Instead of fighting through the tough times, they leave, they go somewhere else. And basically coaches now, I speak to so many Division I coaches that during the course of the year, they're not only recruiting kids to come to their program, They're recruiting the kids on their team to stay in the program.
Yes.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at it like this. If a kid is at Cardozo for 1 year and he's with me, and because people don't realize the amount of time I put with them individually. I'm in the park working on their ball handling, their dribbling, their passing, their strength, their core strength, in the weight room, all of that stuff. You see how I'm there for you. You can call me 2 a.m. if there's a problem. If 8 a.m. you're cutting class, well, I'm on you at 8:15. So if after 1 year that's not good enough or you want more, then you know what? I hope you transfer, because I can only give you everything I got. And I wish the players would give me everything they got, because if they do, they'll become better players, better people, and better persons.
Now, let's talk New York City high school basketball for a minute. And I want to talk to different eras, from when you were in high school to when you became a coach, right? To now, right? Let's talk about the amount of basketball players and the amount of talent that you've seen throughout your years, from being a player, then being a coach, and so forth, up to this day. Like, how has New York City transformed?
Well, I think parts of the country have caught up with us. I also hate when a good kid in New York, whether it's the Bronx, Staten Island, Manhattan, Brooklyn, or Queens, that after a year or two, you leave and go to a prep school. Prep schools are good for some, but if you're getting what you want, if you're getting your grades, I mean, could you imagine you go to a Christ the King, you go to a St. Raymond's, you go to a Cardinal Hayes, you go to a Jefferson, you go to a Cardozo, you're getting everything you want, and you got to leave to go to prep school to get that? That's BS. That's bad. I understand if you're at some B division school, nobody knows you're alive. But come on, New York City's the Mecca. Look at the greats. I mean, Cole Anthony left to go to Oak Hill. Well, Kenny Anderson would never have left to go to Oak Hill. Kenny Smith's not leaving to go to Oak Hill. I mean, come on. New York City. I mean, the games in the 80s, 90s, 2000s. Come on. Lincoln Cardozo, Sebastian Telfair, Tolentine, St. Ray's when Tolentine was open, St. Ray's, Cardinal Hayes. This year, Christ the King versus Cardinal Hayes. Forget about it. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous level ball. And the thing that I don't like is the national rankings of the top high schools. You got a Cardinal Hayes, which is a high school. You got Christ the King, that's a high school. Then you got IMG, that's not a high school. Monteverde's a prep school. They're giving out like 20. I love Kevin Boyle, but let's cut it out now. They're prep schools that grab their kids. The school that I think right now shouldn't be in the state of federation anymore is Long Island Lutheran, because they're playing a prep school schedule. They can take any kid they want in. They can house any kid. They can give out I-20s. We can't do that. There was a kid, Tykiel Green. He was at Edison when Edison was in the B division. Wasn't getting looked. He wanted to come to Cardozo. I couldn't take him because Queens to Queens, it's not like Brooklyn. You don't get the waiver to play. But he can go right away and play at Lehigh. So, I mean, the rules are so different. The rules are so different. And you know what?
What's the difference? Excuse me, I didn't mean to cut you off. What's the difference between Queens and Brooklyn in that aspect where a kid can transfer?
It's a lot harder to transfer from public to public in Queens than it is in Brooklyn. Believe me, it's a lot harder. There are kids who wanted to go to a construction, a Cardozo, a Bound from other schools, but they can't because the high school placement center is not going to do it, But in Brooklyn, it seems like it's a lot easier to transfer. That's the way it is.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about I'm still stuck in the early 80s, right?
Oh,
because when we talk about myself coming up and learning the game from Coach Gil Reynolds, because he the one who kind of gave me my fundamentals.
Vanguard.
Right? Yes. So there was a kid. Let me finish the story. There was this kid who, of course, I had him on a show and was good friends with him, still good friends with him. 7-foot kid, that was there, and I was so amazed by him, like how the first 7 foot I've ever seen. And Gil Reynolds was working him out. He would come to 309 Park, and this gentleman name is Dwayne Carswell, who played with you at Cardozo. So when I had him on the show, I asked him, I was like, yo, I always thought you was from Brooklyn. I didn't realize, you was a kid from Queens.
9322 10th Street, Queens Village, New York. That's where he grew up.
He said Coach Ron Naclerio would send me to Coach Gil so he can help me out. And now listen, I'm saying to myself, that's such a compliment to yourself, right? To let another coach kind of work out your player and give them the skills they need and bring them back to Queens, so you can kind of refine the tools that he had already. But he told me it was your idea to send him there.
Well, you know what? I learned as a coach, if you're the only voice they hear, sooner or later, they're going to tune you out. When that happens, the coach dies. Remember, I had a coach Dwayne, just like Gil Reynolds did, but I had to also coach Dwayne in the team setting, team offense, team defense. I also had to coach Dwayne as a person because Dwayne came in very shy. He came in with low self-esteem. He was scared. And I also had to coach him academically. So if I could get somebody to help me 5%, 10%, 20%, why not? I think that's the sad thing now. Everybody, he's going to steal your kid. Let's steal your kid. It's like, come on. I mean, if you have a beautiful wife, what do? You don't ever let her leave the house. You got to trust the fact that, she's going to go out there, and you should be proud that people, are looking at and saying positive things about your wife. So I would want positive people around my players. I want great people to be around my players. Also, you know what? I like to think I'm very, very, very good at what I do. So if I send my player to someone else and they see that what I'm teaching them is being taught by somebody I respect, then they might even say, hey, my coach, who I think is pretty good, might be very good. And you know what? My goal is to get them from A to Z. And if I'm a D and I have to get off the train and hop back on a G and then let go at L and then hop back on an R, and W, somebody else, I don't care. It takes a village. And remember, as much as I put it to Dwayne Carswell, I also had 14, 15 other players on that team. So it's hard. It's hard. And you know what? There might be one thing that Gil Reynolds does that Dwayne picks up with more familiarity than Ron Naclerio. It might be one drill that Ron Naclerio's not as good as Gillen. I don't mind. I'm still learning. Every morning, I spend 20, 30 minutes pickandpop.net, individuals. I'm still learning. At my age, I have a pamphlet. Anybody out there? I have Mark Jackson and Pete Vesey, the only people. I have about 4,000 pages of basketball notes written down. They want me to make it a book. I have, when I do my clinics for USA Basketball, USAU Basketball, I hand out a 25-page front and back pamphlet on so much basketball in those 50 pages, and everybody loves it. I want to teach the coaches to get better. Bobby Hurley Sr., who's a Hall of Fame coach, he loves my pamphlet. Kevin Eastman, who gets paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, who coached in the NBA, Boston, the Clippers. When I gave him my pamphlet at one time, 2 days later, he said, Ron, this is awesome. You have to learn how to market yourself. I don't know how to do that. I just want to teach my players to become the best players to be, so I can hopefully win games and make their lives better. Can I do a couple of things at my age? Yeah, but I realize people say I'm in the fourth quarter of my career. Well, hopefully it's early in the fourth quarter, not late.
Rest in peace, Gil Reynolds, man. I appreciate you for sharing that. Let's talk about some of the players that helped you build the foundation for the Cardozo program, because a lot of people don't understand. You coach a lot of great players that came out of your program. But I know in the beginning stages, you know, you had some rough patches to build that program into what it is to this day. Who are some of the players, and I know you probably can't name them all, but who are some of the building blocks to help you build the foundation?
Well, the first core was Russell Castle, Theron Hodges, Philip Mills, Dwayne Carswell, Brant Bester, Steve Peterson, Kyle Carell, Curtis Bryant, Brant Bester, Sam Cutchin, Scott Denley. That core, they needed discipline. They needed guidance. But you know what? They wanted it. And here I am 35, 40 years later. These are the guys that are going to do the dinner in my honor. These are the guys that are the first guys to call me on Christmas, Thanksgiving. Is everything all right? They got it going. Dwayne didn't even believe in himself. I remember there was a guy who was a GA. The coach of Pittsburgh was fired, and they put him temporary interim coach. He was a GA. He comes to the Edison game. He offered Dwayne Carswell a scholarship. So I said to him, how could I have him accept? One, you're not even the coach. You don't have, it's a temporary position. We don't know if you're going to get it, which he didn't get it. It was John Calipari.
Wow.
So, but then I started getting to Kevin Stories, to Greg Scott's, may they rest in peace. Then it became Elgin Womack. Then it became Bruce Smith. Then it started becoming Melvin Robinson, Cam Tyler, on and on to Charles Cranford, Ray Skip to my Lou Alston, Dwayne Woodward, Brian Woodward, Royal Ivy, Ryan Special Effects Williams, Trey Singletary, Shabar Ewing. Then it became Killer Cam, Theo Davis, Steve Gladstone, Dwayne Doob Johnson, who played 4 years at North Carolina Greensboro as a starter, Skylar Khalil. Then it became Trinity Fields. Then it became Dwayne Brunson, may rest in peace, Shelton McHale, Ryan Rooms, on and on, Ray Salnave, Tariq Colbert, Aaron Walker, whose younger brother Jordan Walker might be my best player now. I mean, I'm leaving so many out. 91 Division I players, 42 Division II players, many NAIA, JUCO, 4 in the NBA, 2 coaches. I got Sean Crawford, who I left out, assistant coach at Seton Hall. I got David Duke, the head coach of Adelphi, who played with Rayford and Dwayne Woodward. I got so many people coaching. Raheem Oates, the head coach at East Meadow High School in Long Island, on and on and on. And I wish I would have had that question earlier, because I don't want to leave them out, because I know I have 14 people that played for me that are coaching. So Anthony Mamanakis, who's now assistant coach at Cardozo, that runs Spartan Pride. Mike Blissett, who played for me, assistant coach. Melvin Robinson played for St. Peter's, the head coach of environmental studies, an A team in the PSAL. So many, Dwayne Woodward, Seton Hall, now he's at 40. He's at University of Rhode Island. I left him out. So, I'm just leaving him out. And whoever I left out, call me after the show, curse me out.
All right, Coach. Now, for a long time, Jackson was getting a lot of the players from the surrounding area, and then y'all also had to battle with some of the Catholic schools, and then a lot of these ball players that you just mentioned started pouring into, Cardozo, so that's what I think, when the shift came, right?
Well, you know what happened?
When the shift came from, and it moved from Jackson to Cardozo, right? And especially when you were able to compete as far as the wins, how did that make you feel? And did you know you were definitely on your way as a coach after receiving all of those new incoming players that decided to go to Cardozo?
Well, here I am, head coach, 42 years. I'm scared. My first year, I was 1 win and 21 losses. I'm scared. And what I did Coach Conaseca, Lou Conaseca is like an uncle to me. We're taking him out January 5th to Lenny's Clam Bar. He's going to be 98 years old, January 5th.
Wow. Salute, Coach Conaseca.
So I went to him. I started buying every tape, went to every clinic, flew out to Indiana for a clinic, went to Hartford for the Big East clinic. Coach Conaseca saw me at all these clinics because he was speaking. He goes, "You're serious?" So he introduces me to Larry Brown, and I'm starting to come to practices and I'm learning. IS-8, the legendary IS-8. I'm playing Andrew Jackson, and it's an Elm Court tournament. And there was a kid that was in Andrew Jackson that transferred to Cardozo named Greg Scott. He did something wrong, and Greg had an emotional problem. He lost it, and I went off in his face. Well, I didn't know that the principal and the assistant principal and a couple of teachers from IS-8 came to that game to watch two kids, Dwayne Robbins, another kid that from IS-8, and Greg Scott. And when I got in Greg's face, the two teachers said, "I can't believe it. Greg's going to knock this coach out." And they couldn't believe that Greg stood at attention and did what I said. And they said, "You know what? I don't know what this guy did, but Greg didn't do what Greg normally does." And IS-8 was a big feeder for Coach Granby. May he rest in peace. And the principal, assistant principal, Bernie Goldberg, said, "You know what? Maybe I could start sending a couple of kids there." It seemed like we sent the kids to Andrew Jackson. They played ball, but for whatever reason, they didn't get their grades. Maybe the school was a tough school. Maybe it was the type of school that didn't really preach going to college. We give it a shot. So next thing you know, I get a Raheem Oates, Cal State Bakersfield, two-time All-City player. I get a Gary Rush, who now is the superintendent in Long Island, Queens College. And that opened up the doors. I must have had 20 or 30 IS-8 players. I had Maurice Mo Diamonds Johnson. Remember Mo?
Yeah.
Mark Pearson, Kevin McCain, Tyrone Rivas. So I started getting a lot of IS-8 players.
I actually saw Raheem Oates, I mean to cut you off, Coach, at IS-8 recently, and we exchanged numbers, and I told him I'm definitely going to bring him on the show. I told him I was having one. Yeah. Raheem, I hope you're seeing this, brother. See you soon.
Yeah. Well, I learned a lot at IS-8 because it opened me up to the hood. It got me in the hood. So what happened was they wanted to send me a couple of players, and I wasn't a regular teacher at Cardozo. So they called to get a hold of me. And switchboard operator said, "Oh, he's not here today." So finally he goes, "Why is he not there?" He goes, "Well, he doesn't teach here. He subs here a lot of the times, but sometimes he teaches subs elsewhere." So finally they get a hold of me and they said, "Wow, if you're looking to teach, we'd love to have you at IS-8." I wasn't interested. The following year, September comes. I think this was 84. And I realized, you know what? I'm hurting myself. I would be making more money. I'd get the dental plan, the insurance plan. So I called IS-8, Bernie Goldberg. "Is this Ron Naclerio?" "Yeah." He goes, "The offer you gave me?" "Yeah." He goes, "Does it still stand?" "Hell yeah. Come right down." So I started teaching at IS-8. And Bernie Goldberg on Fridays would have second, third, and fourth period. He would take the top 30 players, put them in gym class where I would work with them 3 periods. I had Hassan Jennings, who, I have so many guys, James Lumps McMore, Charlie Brown, down and on. So the natural thing was to come to Cardozo, and I didn't know IS-8 academically compared to Cardozo. And that's when I realized the junior highs around Cardozo, the basketball players there, the kid who averaged 20 in the local junior high near Cardozo probably wouldn't make the team at IS8, but then also the kid with an 80 average at IS8 might be a struggling 65 at Cardozo. This is a funny story with Maurice Johnson, Mo Diamonds. Mo Diamonds used to love to carry a teddy bear. You remember?
No, I didn't know that.
He used to carry a teddy bear.
Wow.
And that was Mo. They were in ninth grade. That was a lot of times when ninth grade you would go to, you know, the junior high, and in 10th grade you go high school. So I remember this year I'm the crisis intervention teacher at IS8. And by the way, I learned a lot when Bernie Gober told me you're taking the 60-day course, crisis intervention teacher. I didn't want to do it because I wouldn't get to Cardozo until 3 o'clock each day instead of 2:45. But I learned so much. I learned self-esteem. I learned drug prevention. I learned crisis management. I learned so much that it really opened my eyes. And I started venturing into the projects, 40 projects, Baisley projects.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am being this brash young kid. And it was funny because Kareem Jennings and Hassan Jennings was talking to Mike Blissett, my assistant, in August when the documentary on Showtime, The Supreme Team, was coming out, that Naclerio didn't know when he's venturing into Baisley and 40 that I was butting heads with all these young kids that were primetime big guys. I didn't know Bimmy was part of that. I knew Bimmy as a potential basketball player who I helped get a GED and send them to junior college. I didn't.
Wow.
And here I am with all of these supposedly, cartel street guys, and I'm looking at them that get your ass to class because you're gonna, hopefully make something in life instead of realizing they're walking around with more money in their pocket than I'm making in any year from coaching. So I learned a lot. And so we started getting him into Cardozo. It didn't make Coach Granby happy because that was a big pipeline for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that first year, Lou Dalmeda sent Lloyd Daniels to Oak Hill. Lloyd couldn't make it at Oak Hill, but Lloyd and I had a relationship. He thought maybe it would be good sending him to Cardozo. He couldn't get Lloyd in because he wasn't in the zone. He was in the Jackson zone. And lo and behold, what happens? Who does Cardozo play in the third round of the playoffs?
I remember.
Andrew Jackson. And what a game. What a game. What a game. Thank God we won. I remember that was the year my dad died, October 14th. And
rest in peace. That was in 1986, correct? That was 1986. Yep.
Yeah. And then, well, the game was in 1986. My dad passed away in October 85, the 85-86 season.
Got you. Sorry about that. Mm-hmm.
Here we are playing, and I remember there were 2 NBA scouts at the game that years later they said, who would have thought that Dwayne Carswell would have been a first-round draft pick, and Lloyd made it the hard way. But Lloyd had 31 points that game. People said he dumped the game for me. I mean, come on. I forgot the score, but what a game. What a game. What a game. But getting back to Maurice Johnson,
mm-hmm.
he carries this teddy bear. And I'm walking around, and he's in, I forgot the guy's name. It was a social studies teacher. Little Jewish guy. I forgot his name. Well, whatever. So Maurice idolized Derek Chivas, the Band-Aid man.
That's right. It's my boy.
So Maurice is carrying this teddy bear around thinking it's Derek Chivas, and he's got Band-Aids on the teddy bear. And there's a test in this social studies class. So you know how the junior high desk where they were double desks?
Yeah.
Maurice has the teddy bear, and evidently the person sitting next to him wasn't there to start the test, so he puts Teddy in the seat. 5 minutes into the test, the girl comes and tells Maurice to move the teddy bear because that's her seat. You know, you have assigned seats. So Maurice gets into an argument with the girl. Teddy was here first. So, it was Silverstein. Silverstein was the so Silverstein starts going, what do you? So he says, listen, the girl has to sit there. You know, he didn't want to throw gas on. So he convinces Maurice to let the girl sit there. So Maurice puts the teddy bear on his desk. The teacher knew you couldn't have the teddy bear. So the teacher comes and says, look, I will hold Teddy until the test is over. So Maurice gives him this look. And I'm walking, not knowing what's going on. And because the door's open. So the teacher puts Teddy on the desk. And I don't know why the teacher felt funny with having Teddy on the desk. So you know how all Board of Ed desks, I got the big bottom right drawer?
Yeah.
The teacher, in the middle of the test, opens up the drawer, takes Teddy, puts him in the drawer, starts to close the door. Starts to close the drawer, you know, to put Teddy in the closed door. Maurice goes sprinting up, and that's when I'm walking by at the teacher like he was going to attack the teacher, yelling, Teddy's scared of the dark. I'm like, and I'm like, are you kidding me? This is who I'm bringing into Cardozo? But oh no. You know what?
Wow.
You have some funny stories. You know, like I remember at ISA, the principal said, Ron, you're a crisis intervention teacher. So this is what we're going to do. There were 12 kids, 12 incorrigibles that nobody could handle. They're junior high. And Bernie Gobert said, listen, they're going to come in at 9 instead of 8. We're going to let them leave at 2. They're going to be with you like a self-contained class. Do with them whatever you want. So I had these 12 nuts. 3 of them ended up shooting cops later on. They were really rough kids. There was a kid that they bring into the class. The kid was the nicest kid in the world, but his reading and math level must have been 0. He couldn't get anything right. 2 and 2, 10. What's the color of George Washington's white horse? Black. I mean, I felt sad for the kid. He just couldn't learn. But why did they stick him in there? I didn't know why. But the school guidance counselor said, listen, try to build up his self-esteem, blah, blah, blah. So I would play these question and answer games. So I'd have the 13 kids, because it was 12 nuts, incorrigibles, and this kid. So I'd have their names. So I would play a game. I would ask a question. First person up would get a chance to answer the question. If that person's right, they get 1, a check. If they get it wrong, the second person's hand was up. So they're telling me, Ron, please try to do it. The kid is, you know, the kid wants it, but he was really bad. So I start off, they love questions and answers. So I start off this day, everybody's name. Are we ready? I spread them apart. Remember the rules. First hand up. If you get it right, fine. So I go, name a state that starts with F. Name a state that starts with F. So there's one kid who unfortunately ended up shooting and killed the cop. His hand's right up. So I'm making a believe I don't see it. Finally, I see the kid that I'm trying to build. He's slowly raising his hand. So his hand goes up. I call on him. And the kid whose hand was up, what you doing? My hand was up first. I didn't see it. But so I go, name a state in the South that starts with F. So he goes, France, And I'm like, how do you not get this right? How do you not say Florida? So the kids who hand was up first start yelling at him, you stupid, you don't know anything. He goes, everybody knows it's Philadelphia. And then I'm like, this is nuts.
Wow.
So then later on, I go, you know how they have the signs? 1 foot, 12 inches, 36 inches a yard, 3 feet a yard, 5,280 feet equals a mile. So I call my next question. How many feet in a mile? Kid's hand goes up. So I call on him. So he's rubbing his chin. So I said, listen, you know the rule. You raise your hand, I call, and you got to give me the answer. How many feet in a mile? He goes, it all depends on how big your foot is. I'm saying, it's shot. But you learn.
That's awesome. Being an educator, you know, listen, you
now
gotta perform every day.
My first year at Cardozo, I didn't realize everybody starts early, conditioning, they're putting in their place like a schmuck. The first day of tryouts is the first day, so I'm way behind. So I'm having a layup line. You know, they have 100 kids, you know, a layup line, 100. So, you know, if the kid comes down and dunks the ball, which my second year, Bruce Smith did, you realize he can play. So kid shows up 10 or 15 minutes into tryouts with his medical. I look up in the folder. So the kid goes, what do? I go, well, go downstairs, get changed, come back. So he goes downstairs, he gets changed, he comes back. So I go, what do I do now? I go, get at the end of the line. Okay. A minute later, the kid comes back. I go, coach, what should I do? I said, go to the end of the line. Get to the end of the layup line. Get to the end of the line. He comes back. I go, what's the problem? He goes, there's already somebody else at the end of the line. And I'm like, that's when I realized common sense isn't so common. Unbelievable.
Wow. Your assistant coach Mike Blissett wanted to know, how does it feel to be one of the few legendary coaches from Queens left from the 70s?
Well, if I say it in the sarcastic manner that I always say, that means I'm next to die. But no, it feels great because, honestly, I miss going against Coach Granby. I miss going against Francis Lewis, Ray James. I miss going against Hillcrest, Ken Gershon. I miss going against August Martin, Jim Kearney. I miss going against Springfield Gardens, Kenny Fiedler, because they made me raise my game. They made it that I had an X and O with the best, and I had to find a way to be a pest, to overachieve. And, you know, the first year I was 1-21. The next year I was 21-4. Since then, there's only been 2 years that I can call ugly. I've won, I think, 28 years of 20 or more, which is the state record. I've won 24 years in a row consecutively of 20 or more, which, you know, it's hard. I mean, to win 28 years of 20 or more means you got to coach 28 years and go 20 wins a year. And every year you don't, you got to go another year. So it's a long time. I've been blessed. You know, I try to stick the knowledge into my players' brains. Thank God I believe I taught Mike a lot, and he's one on his own. And without Mike, Cardozo would still not be thriving the way it is. I'm hoping that when I do finally leave, I leave on a high note. I'm not planning on leaving anytime soon. You know, I have a couple of goals that I still want to do individually, and I have a couple of goals definitely team-wise.
Yeah, I think when it's all said and done, when Mike takes over, you'll be leaving it in good hands.
Well, I hate to say it. Mike has told me when I leave, he leaves.
Wow. That's loyalty. Let's talk about.
I don't even why. I just think you realize it's hard to do this. People.
No, this is what I'm about to get to, because people think this is easy, right? When we talk about your first championship run in 1999 against another New York City legendary coach, Coach Johnny Mathis, and beating them in the city championship, right? You don't win your next one till 15 years later.
Yeah. Well, people don't realize how hard it is. I mean, certain schools, it's easier to be at a high level. I mean, if you're in a school in the projects where you have a lot of kids that play ball, it's a little easier to consistently be at a higher level than if you're in a school that has no projects and your enrollment is not a basketball type kid. Cardozo, we have no projects. We have no zones. We're 53% Asian.
Mm.
We have as many kids trying out for volleyball, boys and girls, as we do for basketball. We have kids trying out for basketball that aren't good enough to be managers at some of the schools. I tease some of the coaches at Jefferson and South Shore and Lincoln. I'd like to go to your tryouts and see some of the kids you cut.
Yeah.
Remember Sonny Vaccaro, the legendary guy?
Yes.
He always thought Cardozo was a hood school in the projects. And when he came by about 15 years ago and he saw Cardozo, one of our boundaries is Long Island, Great Neck, which is one of the most affluent neighborhoods in the area, and saw it, he goes, Ron. He walked around. He saw the gym. He saw a gym class. He saw a couple of black kids. He saw, a couple of black kids wearing glasses looking like Urkel. He saw 8 kids that when it was free play, they went to play volleyball, not basketball. Or they went to play badminton instead of football. So we have a different demographic. And to do what I've done at Cardozo, I didn't realize, because it's hard, and there are so many kids that tell me, Coach, yeah, I wanted to come to Cardozo. What happened? I put it down on my application. I didn't get accepted. The best kid on St. Francis Prep right now, Rob Pasquarelli, who'll probably get 25, 30 a game, signed to go to Marist. We found out from his mother, he and his parents wanted him going to Cardozo. They put it down 1 in 8th grade. He didn't get accepted. Then he had a second chance to apply, didn't get accepted. So that's when they started looking Catholic school, because they didn't want him going anywhere but Cardozo if he went public school. So there's a lot of those. Yes, do I get some transfers? Yes. Do I get my share? Well, I'll also say this. If you go to a Catholic school and you have to leave and you want to go to a public school, well, you're probably going to want to go to a public school that's had some great success over the years. Notoriety, winning games, winning playoff games, possibly going to the chip, possibly winning borough championships, kids going on to college, kids getting scholarships, kids going to the NBA. The track record shows, you have a better chance. Now, the last 6 kids that played PSAL basketball from Queens that went straight, not JUCO, not prep school, that went straight to Division II or Division I. The last 6 are all from Cardozo. So,
wow,
great success. And one of my fears is that the success is going to end. That's what keeps me going. And I realize there are other schools, they're doing a great job. Bound, Construction, Campus Magnet, Francis Lewis, they're all there. And, from what I've accomplished with the help of so many of my players and my coaches, when we show up to a Queens game, we got the bullseye on our back. We got the bullseye.
Yeah, and then the 15 years later, you defeated one of your former summer league players in Lawrence Bud Pollard, Jefferson. Where did you play that game at, and how was the experience once you got your second one?
Well, you know what? I hate to say it, Coach Bud and I haven't talked in about a year and a half. He's mad at me for something that I didn't do. But, Hirsch in heaven, if he had a cell phone, would call Pollard to sit it out. Coach Pollard and I go way back. way back. And, you know, he has it one way at Jefferson. I have it a different way at Cardozo. Things that you can be a little sloppy in Brooklyn, you can't be so sloppy in Queens. You know, I have some ADs in principle that you have to cross your T's, dot your I's. Maybe over there you can exhale a little differently. And
what do you mean by that, Coach? What do you mean by that? Explain to the people just a little bit more, because you know I don't want any messages being misconstrued.
All right. Well, all I know is
what's going on.
If Ron Naclerio had a kid on an inactive list and played him, I would be up the creek. There are other schools that might have a kid on an inactive list, and for whatever reason, you know, I would never play a game without my roster up, because the rules state you cannot play a game without your roster up. There are schools that might have played a game last year and their roster wasn't up. It's just the rules are enforced differently at certain places.
So what they got to do with you, Coach?
Well, unfortunately, Pollard and I, we were very tight. I helped raise him. I remember the time him and Todd Miles, another disciple of Hirsch, they had a major problem, major fight. Both of them called me, you know, what to do, because Hirsch passed away. And they said there was tape of the game. So I said, well, the first thing to do is, what is the tape going to show? And, well, you know what? Then get rid of the tape. But I think it had something to do with the COVID rules. You know, I would love to sit down with him, but I was disappointed that last year that when I went to the JV game Cardozo played at Jefferson, I was told, he told people I was not allowed in. Then there was a kid that transferred from All Hallows that played for him, that was played for All Hallows, then started playing for him December 7th. January 20th, a mysterious email, Donald Douglas at cheatersneverwin.com, talks about the kid. How is the PSA letting him play? I got the email. It was emailed to everybody. And it just seems weird. At the end of the email, from an email, Donald Douglas at Cheaters Never Prosper, there's RN. And people think it was Ron Naclerio, which I laughed. I wrote Pollard a letter. Why would I put my initial on it if I was trying to rat a kid out? Why would I rat the kid out 5 weeks later when he was already pushed? So let's cut it out. Somebody is trying to set me up. Now, what has happened in the last 2 years, I have been out there, a voice during the COVID pandemic to come back. Sports, remember we were playing outside? Well, I fought to get him inside. Then I fought to try to get it that fans could come back. Then I got it to try to get it that you didn't need the vaccine, because why could kids go to school, play in gym, not get the vaccine, but after school couldn't play? And it seems weird that Ron Naclerio, who's gotten satisfactory ratings for 40 years, never been investigated, never had a problem. Ever since COVID, and I've been a voice, I've been investigated 3 times. It just seems weird. I'll give you a perfect, well, you know what, there's a lot of examples, but it just seems weird that, you know, and I realize when you are out there fighting the establishment, that somebody in the establishment could throw a little ripple in your water and make it a little bumpy. And it's been a little bumpy.
Yeah, you also co-authored a book, Sweet Pea and the Other Legends. I'm gonna get it right. Sweet Pea and Other Playground Legends.
Drugs, violence,
and basketball, right?
Yep.
Right. How did you feel when it was placed in the Basketball Hall of Fame, and what kind of flack did you receive from the New York City basketball community after the book came out?
I got some positives and I got some negatives. The positives was we told the story that needed to be told. The positives were it opened up light on New York City basketball, the good, bad, and the indifferent. It also told about how the drug game was involved in the basketball game, and the basketball players were around the drug dealers. I helped Lloyd a lot. I spent a lot of money on Lloyd Daniels, trying to help him. I cost me a pretty penny. John Valenti did the book. He needed me, and what I wanted to do with the money was to help pay for Lloyd Daniels' rehab, drug rehab. But you know what? No matter what you do, you're going to get hit if you tell a story. Now, there were 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 things that really were ugly in there, that could have made people look bad. Things that Lloyd did that if they knew what he did to myself, to Hirsch, we were trying to help him, that they would say, shame on Lloyd. So the money that I made from the book was practically nil. The book was a bestseller. It's hard to help somebody that after you've exhausted your funds, you need more funds. And then I say to myself, why am I helping a kid like that? My mother used to go crazy. You're working all week, you're helping, who's going to help you if you got hooked on drugs? Who's going to help you if you became an alcoholic? Who's going to help you if you got hit by a car? And now that I'm 65 years old, I realize there are very, very few that will help me. But my inner circle knows what I've done. I do everything for love. I get some notoriety. I don't get any money. And, I have to pay my car note every month. I have to pay my cell phone. I have to pay, just like everybody else. So, you know what? I'm starting to say, one of the things that might say on my tombstone, most wins, but it also might say LS, lifetime schmuck.
Well, I think you could change that, right? If you ever get a chance to write another book, and it's about the positive side of New York City basketball, because what we try to do here on Basketball Head is try to shed the positive light on individuals who have, put it down for New York City basketball and sacrificed their time for the game without the controversy, without making people look bad. I think you still have a lot of life in you, and I know you have great stories which you shared with us tonight, that it could be a positive spin to the end of your legacy. Talk about the good things that New York City has provided for kids in New York City.
There are kids that were born with no chance that ended up becoming stars. I got to be very friendly with a person that won a couple of EBC chips, not as a player, but a guy that is a role model for kids that are losers in Fat Joe.
Yeah.
Fat Joe, someone that admits he used to stick people up. He could have been dead or in jail, but now he went from an all-time loser to someone who everybody idolizes and would love to be. I got to know Joe. He has an autistic son who I feel bad, but he shows that kid love every day. He's an amazing, very, very bright person. And there are a lot of stories like that.
But there's a lot of, speaking of, outside of Fat Joe in the hip hop world, there are hundreds of basketball players who have changed their lives, went to college, got scholarships, and were able to do great things, outside of sport and within the sport as well. So,
I've had a couple of kids that, teachers, what are you dealing with this kid? I have a kid right now, Errol White, who nobody thought he could pass. He just scored 25 and 17 in his first Division II game. So I'm so proud of him. Everybody thought he wasn't going to do this. Even people in the program, you're wasting your time. And the one thing that I've learned, a lot of kids have come back to me when they were 25, 30, and they said, Coach, I didn't realize when you were yelling at us, you were yelling love.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
That, you know, when you yelled at me for selling something I shouldn't be selling, that if I made the sale go through, I might have gotten a scholarship, not to a Division I school, but to, you know, University of Rikers Island. You know, and let's face it, I come from another world that was thrown into this basketball in a city world. And maybe I see it a little different. Maybe originally I understood it a little different. You know, it's really weird because somebody sees a policeman shot and somebody tells the police who shot the policeman. In some people's eyes, it's not the guy who shot the cop that's the bad guy. It's the guy who saw who shot the cop and told the cops is the bad guy. That's kind of warped thinking. And that's what I've had to decipher over the years. But you know what? I think I've done plus minus, a lot of pluses, some minuses. You know, maybe there was a couple of kids I could have showed a little more love to. Maybe put a little more time in. Maybe there was a couple of kids I was too hard on. You know, maybe because I wanted it for them more than they wanted it. Maybe because I saw in them something that they couldn't see because they wouldn't even try to open up their eyes. And you know what? I got a little rap. This is the first time I'm doing this, so I might appear a little nervous. You all know me from coaching. I'm putting over 50 years of service. You look at me and you see I'm a middle-aged honky, but don't try to play me like I'm a middle-aged honky. Try to set the youth on the right road with words of persuasion. So many times it falls on deaf ears. Is it system or Caucasian? Man, respect cause I taught so many, it's a question of who. Still doing my thing with passion. The hood knows how Skip got his loo. A ball, a hoop, hard work, and a dream. When I push them, I'll get in their face. Can they handle when I scream? Wrong color in the right game. Made no money, that's a damn shame. I earned so very little cheese. I got a $9 menu, Mickey D's. Wrong color in the right game, right? A honky that is putting overtime in the hood. Time, money, effort, I tried. I did all that I could. I went to the eye doctor because my vision wasn't being too kind. The optician came back. The prognosis, totally colorblind. Everyone loves a player in the court who hustles and dives. I wanted to coach basketball. I ended up coaching lives. People see me coach. They say I'm bugged. I'm hyper. They say I'm too intense. They say I'm totally crazy. 20 years ago, I did this. I would have been Jay-Z.
Hey, Coach, I'm going to bring a few more questions. I'm going to get you out of here. One of my, I call my, can't call my fans a moderator. He's always on my show. He's always asking questions. Todd Riverio from Harlem. He said, ask Coach Ron about playing in the infamous game alongside Skip to Malou, Todd Miles, Seth Marshall versus the Streets, coached by Mousy, with R.I.P. Dave Edwards, Shane the Dribbling Machine, main event, Charles Jones and Half Man, Half Amazing in 1994 at Rucker Park, which you got your name.
Yeah, you know what? As a coach, I love to play. I was really good in baseball, but I was okay in basketball. Played JV, played Cardozo, made Queens B, all Queens. Played St. John's, sub-varsity, JV. And playing in that game, you know, I wanted to shine too. I was smart enough to get the ball to the right guys, but
right.
You know, I had a couple of my skip to my Lou moves, the behind the back, between the leg pass, or in the N1 mixtape tour in Hollis OCP, where I came down the court, put the ball behind my back, flipped it up, and miraculously, the guy on my team saw the lob coming, caught it, and dunked it, and I got mad love. But it was great to be out there. And I remember a game playing in the Rucker, and the times were screwed up.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of guys weren't going to be there because they thought it was at 8 when the game was at 7. So we only had 5 guys. Mark Jackson, Ryan, Special Effects Williams.
Wow.
Ryan, yeah. Mark Jackson, Ryan, Special Effects, Darryl Hill, Troy Jackson, Escalade, and Ray Austin. So the game's about to start. Mark Jackson flips me a pair of shorts and uniform. So Troy goes, I must have been like 50 then. So he goes, Coach, you playing? So I said, listen, we only got 5 guys. I said, we got a problem here. He goes, what's the problem? I go, everybody out here knows your nickname as Escalade. To me, it's three trips up and down the court and Gatorade for you. 3 trips up and down the court. Who had a sub in me? So now we're playing man. We sub in, and I'm looking at Showtime. I'm looking at Rafe. I'm looking at Mark. I had to go guard Jamal Tinsley. What are these guys, crazy? So I said, what are you, crazy? But listen, it was an era of basketball. Friendships learned, friendships gained, friendships still, mousy. Greg Marius was a classmate of mine at St. John's. That's how I got to know about EBC, and we put a team in, myself and Hirsch. Fat Joe, on and on and on and on. I mean, the history of Rucker Park is a book that I would love to read.
Yeah, look, and as we go on, I'm hearing all of these positive things that's happening in New York City basketball. So that's going to be the next book that you're going to pull out. All the good things about New York City.
There's a lot.
It's going to come from you, right? Now, look, what would make Coach Naclerio tape a young Skip to Malou on a home video during his summer league games, which would revolutionize a sneaker brand throughout the streets of America, known as N1?
Well, what happened was there was a kid that
wait for him to come back.
Oh, I'm back.
Okay.
What happened was going to the Rucker when Rafe was playing started becoming like going to Madison Square Garden. So there was, it only let like 10 players in. So there was a young kid that got a tape recorder, and he started filming me doing drills. So I took him to the Rucker one time. Like, I always want to expand kids' horizons.
Yes.
So I took him. He took the tape. So, Coach, I got this tape. Can I film it again? So it got to the point where Greg started making it. We got to, unless you got there early. So we made him part of the team because he was like the team filmmaker. So that's how we got him in. And he would hand me the tapes. And it was funny, after he filmed for a year or two, he hated filming and went into something else. He ends up owning 3 cleaner stores now, where he does very well. But it was just a fad where he was into filming and blah, blah, blah. So I had the tapes. And next thing you know, Rafer gets drafted by the Milwaukee Bucks. N1's trying to sign him. N1 calls me up to get high school footage. Now, we know, unfortunately, Rafer's junior, senior year, a lot of it was academic ineligibility. I had some film, but I said, listen, I got something else better. So I sent it down there, and they couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe what I sent them because I told them, and then they came with the idea of the N1 mixtape.
Listen, Rafer is such a great guy, right? When I had him on the show, we did a great show, did a great interview. Then he said, yo, Pooh, I enjoyed this so much, I'm coming back tomorrow. So Rafer was the first guy who did like 2 shows back to back on Basketball Head. So salute to my guy, Skip, to my Lou, Rafer Austin, definitely.
Well, you know what the funny thing is? So many guys that play today don't know the history of their school, don't know the history of 2010, 2000, 1990s, 1980. They don't know. Like you go to a kid at Andrew Jackson and I tease him. I'll go, hey, you guys aren't crap. The best player that ever went to your school is a white guy. What? Who? I go, I go, Cousy. They go, who's he? They never heard of Bob Cousy, a legendary Hall of Fame guy. I mean, Cousy's like 93 years old now, but
they never even heard of Boo Harvey. Let's talk about Boo Harvey.
Yeah.
Who should have been in the point guards, respectfully.
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother story. With that, I spoke to Rich Kleiman. I wish when we were at the Showtime premiere that I would have known that, and they would have hit me with it, that I would have loved to see New York City point guards been like the Michael Jordan Last Dance
series. Yes.
10 episodes.
Yes.
And
yes.
The sad thing is, if you did 10 episodes, you could have done more. But, I do know parts of the country hated it that we got so much love, New York City point guards. But I thought the show was great. But when we were at the party and Kevin Durant and Rich Kleiman, who did it, Kevin Durant's business manager and agent, said, Ron, what did you think of it? I said, it was great. Did we leave out? Should we have put Jameek Hosclaw in there? I said, listen, what you guys tried to accomplish was taking the size of a Walmart or a Kmart and stick it in a bodega. You couldn't have done it. And I believe this. I think if in a year or so they decide to do a New York City point guards series, they could do it. It'd take a lot of work, but people would love to see that because I know people watch that documentary religiously.
Well, in the 2 years that I've been going strong, I think I've documented the most New York City most New York stories in New York City history with all the players that came up here and told their story. How important is the New York City stories in basketball culture? How important is it?
You know what? New York City is the Mecca of basketball. It's like Frank Sinatra says, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. Well, you know what? If you're the best player in New York, you're a BMF, a bad mother. Watch your mouth. You know what I'd love to see? Two things. There was an annual New York City Basketball Hall of Fame dinner, which unfortunately several of the people got older and passed away. I want to see that come up again. And then I want to see a New York City basketball museum, a Hall of Fame museum, which I heard Ted Gus is.
Yes, they're doing that. Yes, it's in the works right now. Yes, it is.
Because there is so much there, the high school, the college, the pros, the street ball, the combination of AAU. I mean, you could talk about, if you wanted to argue AAU basketball, I could say, well, the hell with all of you AAU programs, in other cities. We had the Gauchos in Riverside at their prime, and no AAU team could beat them. Then we could talk about the greatest high school teams ever, the greatest high school player. I mean, you talk about the Hall of Famers, the Nate Archibalds, the Billy Cunninghams, the Fred Browns. You talk about the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I mean, the history. And then you talk about the college, the pros. I mean, then the stories. There were guys that did things for a year that have never been done, or for one game that never been done, or for a career. I mean, wow. I mean, like here, Dredrick Irvin, Stevenson High School, a hell of a player.
Yep.
Went to Boston U, a hell of a player. Overseas, a hell of a player. People said to me, because they started the Brooklyn, the Bronx Basketball of Fame, they put names up. He would be a perfect guy. Well, you know what? They don't realize his son spent his first 9 years in Bronx. Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving's dad is Dredrick Irving. So there's so much history there. I mean, if you want to be totally greedy, you got Michael Jordan, who was born in Brooklyn.
Listen, I put up a post of that, I think maybe last month or 2 months ago, and people was going crazy, saying Michael Jordan not from Brooklyn. I never said. I said if he's born here, then he's from here. I didn't say he was raised here. And then I put up a clip of him in the Spike Lee video when he says, Michael Jordan, I was born in Brooklyn, right? So we definitely want to put that aside and let people know, like, look, it's in your blood. You was born in the hospital here in Brooklyn, so we definitely want to claim it, all right? And finally, I want to say this. Last year, I wanted to do a basketball heads picnic where I wanted to bring together everybody, so we can see each other, guys who haven't seen each other in a long time.
That's a tremendous idea.
Right? And then, we get a few awards of our own and partner up with a trophy company. I know my first year, Eric Hicks from Game Over, right?
Yep, I know Eric well.
Eric Hicks, he Game Over. We had an award show, and I gave out a few awards during my first year. But I always said, and I had guys tell me this. Actually, who was Springfield Gardens? My guy Alvin Rich.
Alvin Rich,
right? He gonna be on the show soon. He said, "Yo, Pooh, you need to do a picnic or a barbecue and bring us all together. I'll come in and we'll call guys from out of town and we'll do it big." But I think that'll be something that.
Oh, I would. You tell me that. I'm putting it on my calendar and I'm making sure I'm there.
All right, that sounds good. All right, Coach. Now, for years, New York City, produced some of the best basketball players. What can we do for New York City basketball to bring it back to the place that it was, or at least get back to the level where, coaches like you remember, and now that we have, Coach Ray Haskins that's inside the PSAL, Coach Dwayne Tiny Morton that's in the PSAL to kind of shape and reshape and revitalize New York City basketball as a whole. What can we do?
Well, we got to start grabbing them in elementary school and junior high, fundamentals, almost like they do in Europe. We want to try to have a PSAL junior high league. We got to teach the kids, that it's more than just scoring. They have to learn how to play, teach kids dribbling, passing, shooting. Then we also should got to try to teach some of the high school, the coaches that want to learn more individual drills and skills, plays. And we also hopefully can teach the parents how to help their kids. A lot of parents don't know. They just see their kid dunk 3 times. Oh, he's dunking. Yeah, well, he's dunking now, but, in a game, you're not going to dunk more than 1 or 2 times. You're not going to dunk 20 times a game and get 40 a game on dunks. Or you're not going to be able to just go to the hole every time and lay it in. You're going to have an outside shot, a mid-range game. Just teach them it so they can grow. And then we have to hope that we can build up the AAU programs back, which some of them are. The problem is, too, you have like so many AAU programs traveling the old days, too. The other problem you got is that, it seems like all the good kids in junior high now are either going Catholic school or prep school, that the public school athletic league is not getting their share. So we have to try to do that. And that's where Ray and Tiny and Julius Allen, who's from Harlem, who coached D1 many years.
Yes, Julius Allen, yep.
So hopefully it's going to take time, but, a year or 2 or 3 go by and all of a sudden, wow, the landscape can certainly change.
Well, I was speaking to Tiny this past weekend, and they definitely trying to revitalize the junior high school program for the PSCL. So they definitely heading in the right direction.
Definitely. I like it. I like the way we're going to go. But unfortunately, it's time. And, people, say, oh, Coach, you got all this, you got all that. Well, or this. I put in 42 years to get this. It wasn't like, 42 days and all of a sudden I got a chip and notoriety and I'm the supposedly well-known coach. I put in 42 years as a head coach, 6 of assistant. So it takes time. Just like, if you go to first grade, you get 100 on your first test. They don't all of a sudden stick you in high school. It's a slow process. And the process has to be correct.
If you could change anything about your basketball journey, what would it be?
The way it is now with Cardozo, I would try to get a college or pro job. Because what I thought was family, there's an administration now at Cardozo. They like what we're doing, but they don't see Cardozo basketball. It's like an afterthought, we can't get the gym as much as we would like. There were certain rules that are implemented now that we didn't have with previous principals. So, you know, maybe I stayed too long. You know, let's face it, 51 consecutive years is a long time. You know, I don't know any marriages. Very few marriages last 51 years.
Definitely, definitely. Well, Coach, we reached the end of the show, but before we leave, we have to get through our classic top five. All right? And then we'll get you up out of here. Now, you only can name 5. You can't name a player off the bench. Can't name any honorable mentions. Top 5. Top 5 basketball players from Queens.
Mark Jackson, Kenny Smith, Kenny Anderson, Bob Cousy, and I'm prejudiced. Ray for Austin.
Got you. Okay. Top 5 players you played with at the Rucker.
Ooh. Not against, with.
You know what? I'm going to switch that. Against.
Wow. Oh, my God. The Terminator, Ron Mathias.
Yep.
Big Strick, John Strickland.
Yep. Rest in peace, John Strickland.
Wow. There's so many. Kareem Reed. You're not giving me enough time to think. That's why.
You got some time.
Well, I have to put Ray for Austin on there because he was the all-time show. And the fifth
you played against Rafer?
No, with Rafer. But you know,
we got to play just against.
Okay.
Playing against. And I think I listed this list of players beforehand as well.
Anthony Pell.
Yes. He'll be on the show. I got him. I had him already. Yep.
And Jamal Tinsley.
That's right. Last one, Coach. Top players in New York City history, from your perspective.
New York City history?
Top 5 players in New York City history.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Connie Hawkins, Nate Tiny Archibald. Wow. I got 3, but I can only pick 2. Oh, crud. That's tough. Oh, my God.
That's why this is called the top 5, Coach. The hardest part of the show.
Narrow it down. Oh, I got to narrow it down. On Marbury, Bob Cousy, and I'm at 5. I got 2 more.
That's it. That was it.
Yeah.
That was it. And look, people always say, you know, I had my guy Derek Chivas up here. He said I asked him about his Queens players. He said, Boo Harvey.
Harvey, man. It was tough.
Definitely.
Also played with a hell of a shooter, Ronnie Edwards of the great Edwards family. And there was a kid who was a BMF, Doug Harris. Doug was tough.
He'll be on soon as well. I spoke to Doug the other day.
Doug was tough.
Well, Coach, listen, I want to say this, right? I'm glad we was able to get you on the show. Rest in peace to another one of my mentors, Rich Cossack.
Yeah, I was at his funeral, unfortunately.
He was a great guy. Always was on the phone with me, talking every day. And when I first started the show, he would always say, Glenn, you got to get Coach Naclerio. You got to get Coach Naclerio on. And things, you know, sometimes schedule or times was different. So when I ran into you and we chopped it up, we was able to make it happen. So I want to say rest in peace, to Rich Cossack, and thank you for coming on,
You know,
sharing
when
your story.
how long I was going to be on, I didn't realize about 10 we went over 2 hours and 20 minutes, but it seems like 22 seconds when you're talking about something you love.
Listen, I had Shane, the dribble machine. We went like 3 hours. I had Tiki Mabin from Troy, New York.
Yeah.
We went like 4 hours.
Wow.
You know, so it depends on the story. And look, for me, just sitting here, just as a New York City former player and fan of the game, it was just such a ride. This 2.5 hours, listen to you speak and tell your story. So I want to say thank you. And we all want to say thank you, Coach, for all the things that you've done for New York City and you continue to do. We appreciate you. And you definitely are one of the greatest coaches in New York City history, period.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was great being on.
Thank you, Coach. I'll speak to you soon.
Bye-bye.
All right. All right, people. There's no long speeches here. You've got it. The whole story. And he's continued to move on and coach kids even after 48 years. In New York City, a place where we have 10 million stories, you're going to find men like Ron Naclerio who put in their time and efforts to help kids, no matter what the situation, no matter what the cost. And during that time, you may rub some people the wrong way. But when it's all said and done, as long as your heart is in the right place, you can walk away from the game saying you gave it all you have. And I think once Coach Naclerio has reached that milestone and those other goals that he want to achieve, he could walk away from the game saying that for the most part, he did the right thing and his heart was always in the right place. Because through our life, we're going to make some mistakes. We're going to stumble a little bit. But as long as you keep pushing and you keep doing the right thing and you keep helping those kids that need the help, life is going to work itself out. So with saying that, I'm about to get out of here. Make sure y'all spread the word. Basketball Heads Live, the podcast, the #1 basketball show in New York City, NYC Basketball Network. Make sure you spread the word, people. Tell people to subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost you anything. Just push that button and subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. But we can help this platform grow and continue to bring on more guests so they can tell their story. I am your host, Glenn Pooh Harding, and you've been watching Basketball Heads Live, the official home for New York City basketball. Peace. We out of here.